So this is my teacher, Johnny, my brother-in-law, in his book, The Golden Sequence, and he outlines a technique. I encourage everyone to read the book as well. But this is the technique in it, which is so great to move through any anxiety, to move through any fears, to move through any time we're caught up in our mind and we're just racy, that busy monkey mind, which, by the way, we are all monkey minders. We all have monkey minds until we don't. The function of the mind is to think, to move us into greater states of fulfillment. Now, what's interesting about meditation and the technique that I teach and the technique that Johnny, my teacher, teaches, the technique that Oprah Winfrey does, the technique that Jerry Seinfeld does, the technique that Russell Brand, they're all, Hugh Jackman, another one, is big on this technique. They're all practicing the same technique, which is Transcendental Meditation, Vedic meditation, which is another name for it. And, Johnny created a teacher training academy called the One Giant Mind. And that's what I'm certified to teach.
Welcome to the Get Invested podcast, where we share great conversations with experts from all walks of life to uncover their secret know-how and where they invest their time, their skills and their money, and the benefits that this has created. You see, the truth is that everyone invests. Every minute of every day, we're investing our time, our skills, our energy, and our money in something. Some of us are investing consciously, some unconsciously, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad, and sometimes for no impact. Get Invested will help you to start living by design, not by default. I'm going to help you to make it happen, not let it happen. You will hear the top tips on how you can live with conscious intent so that you can live more, work less, and leave a living legacy by investing now. Listen to the show to discover the top tips on how to get started, make the most of your investment journey, and ultimately to be living your dream, not someone else's. More episodes can be found on iTunes or at bushymartin.com.au/get invested. Thanks for listening, and now let's get invested. Hi, Freedom Fighters. How stressed are you? How often do you feel constantly under pressure with no end in sight and no time for joy or happiness in your day as you constantly keep on the run? How often do you find yourself tossing and turning in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, feeling stressed, worried and anxious about everything that you have to do and everything that might happen that's going to disrupt and destroy your hard-fought life? How do you ease the constant anxiety when you're forever running from one thing to the next without ever having time to do something properly, or being able to just steal just a few precious moments all for yourself? How do you deal with this never-ending, relentless and growing stress? How do you manage it? Alcohol? Medication? Or do you just grit your teeth and keep repeating the good old Aussie mantra of "she'll be right, mate," as slowly but surely your mental, emotional and physical health gets worn down until you're forever exhausted and just dragging yourself around, weighed down by the relentless pressures of life and propped up on caffeine? As health and wellness author Jennifer Ashton once said, everything we do for health has been from the neck down. You feel stressed, so you go and do a workout. You eat well, you try and go to bed early, but your mind is still racing. Does that sound like you? I mean, you're doing it all to try and reduce and eliminate stress, but you still feel tense and unrelieved. You take time out and you're going to have a massage, but then you're anxious for everything you haven't done. So, what are we doing to relieve stress from the neck up? Because it's never about what happens to us, but how we react and respond to it that determines whether a situation is stressful or not. As Bob Roth recently said, the problem of stress is so huge, it's become what has been called the bubonic plague of the 21st century. And that's a big call, because the bubonic plague wiped out most of Europe and elsewhere during its time. And that's because modern medicine has no magic pill that we can take to prevent stress. And there's no magic pill we can take to cure it. Now, we certainly do a good job of self-medicating, the alcohol and the caffeine, the high blood pressure tablets, the headache and antidepressant pills, and the plethora of other Band-Aid stuff that we take on the run. And the list goes on. But it doesn't get to the core. And we all know that we're on a trajectory that's just not sustainable. And we're all just clamouring to jump off the accelerating bullet train of life so we can just continue to cope. And we also know that with the automation and digitalisation, I can't even get the words out, of just about anything and everything, that the world is never going to slow down. In fact, it's likely to get faster and more demanding. We constantly hear how we have to adapt, how we have to change, to pivot, that we have to disrupt or be disrupted, that we have to throw out the old and start with the new. Well, who's supposed to do all that? Who's supposed to throw out the old? Who's supposed to keep creating and innovating? Who's supposed to be doing all this and a lot more? Yep, you got it. Little old you and little old me. Little old creative you and me. Little old organising you and me. And the mounting mental pressure is all on the inside. And so everything is pointing to the internal. So what's the answer? How can we continue to cope? How can we get some inner peace, some time out to feel cool, calm and collected? To take a breather so we can cope with the constant battering of everyday life? And what about your level of happiness? Are you happy? Or do you just experience occasional glimpses on weekends as fillers to your constant stress sandwich? And where do you find your happiness, your joy, your fulfillment in life? Do you seek it externally in our snappy, happy, insta-everything world? Is your happiness only at the surface level and then only fleeting? What if there's another way to manage stress and increase your happiness in one swift hit? A subtle but significant shift from the external to the internal. As you have heard me say on many occasions, I believe that true sustainable success in anything lies at the intersection of the three F's: self, health and wealth. And this triangular success stool will only stand up if all three legs are nourished and strengthened. Ignore any of them and you won't achieve sustainable success or fulfillment in life. And the one we spend the time least on, yet is the most fundamental to any level of success in anything, is self. How you think, what you believe, what are your attitudes and your expectations. So if true happiness is not out there, but it's in us, it's not external but internal, how do we attain it? One of the answers I keep coming back to is meditation. And I've been struggling with it. And I've tried many forms of meditation. But I just can't seem to get my head around it or into it for any sustained length of time. If you've been listening to Get Invested for some time, you would have heard me asking guests how they define meditation. Because I've tried guided meditations, concentration and focus meditations, but I don't seem to be able to escape my incessant monkey mind that keeps chattering constantly and distracting me. So I've been doing some research and going down endless rabbit holes, trying to find out more about meditation and how I can learn and habitualize a form of meditation that really works for me. And as always, when I'm trying to master something, I start with my role models and those that I admire and respect the most. And I was surprised to find out how many are practices of Transcendental Meditation, or TM. A lot of the early followers of TM were musicians like the Beatles, who made TM teachings very popular back in the 1960s and 70s, along with the likes of Mick Jagger, Donovan and Sheryl Crow. And later, we've seen the likes of movie actors and producers like Australia's own Hugh Jackman, Clint Eastwood, Tom Hanks, and more broadly, comedian Jerry Seinfeld, Oprah Winfrey, Ellen DeGeneres, and even one of my investment gurus, Ray Dalio. But the one TM follower that has really grabbed my attention and engaged my interest is David Lynch, the world-renowned and prolific American filmmaker, painter, visual artist, musician and writer. David Lynch is the creator, producer and director of one of my all-time favourite TV series, Twin Peaks, along with The Elephant Man, Blue Velvet and Mulholland Drive. If you haven't seen any or all of these, do yourself a favour. He has this special knack of creating emotionally engaging stories that are somewhat dark and disturbing, but always moving and memorable. And they leave you really thinking and questioning life and what you believe in quite new and very different ways. There's an ambiguity about his work that really gets you thinking and questioning everything that you take for granted. And it's a bit of a surprise to me, Lynch attributes a lot of his creativity and his achievements in life to his twice daily practice of Transcendental Meditation, or TM, which he's been doing habitually now for nearly 4 decades. Lynch explained the power of Transcendental Meditation in his 2006 memoir called Catching the Big Fish. And he said, "Inside every human being is an ocean of pure, vibrant consciousness. When you transcend in Transcendental Meditation, you dive down into that ocean of pure consciousness. You splash in it, and it's bliss." So for me, the benefits and improvements that can be achieved through TM and inner self-realization, they all seem to remain quite elusive to me. But I'm determined to craft the art, given the multitude of benefits it's achieved over many thousands of years now, and has been verified in recent years by multiple respected scientific studies. In order to whet your appetite like it has mine, I'm going to borrow and draw directly on some of the work that David Lynch and his TM teacher David Roth, who is the executive director of the David Lynch Foundation, along with being Oprah's TM teacher, have shared in recent years. And let's start with what the word meditation means, because there seems to be an endless variety of different types of meditation, and I've sampled a bunch of them, from guided meditation through to active meditation while exercising and many more. As David Roth says, it's important to clarify what the word meditation means because it's such an overused word. It's like saying the word food. There's good food and bad food and tasty food and spoiled food and fast food. So the word meditation is just such a huge big tent. And because of scientific research, we're now finally coming to understand more clearly what are legitimate forms of meditation. So to understand what Transcendental Meditation is, and to understand how it compares to other forms of meditation or self-development, Roth likes to use the metaphor or the analogy of an ocean. So imagine you're on a small boat out in the middle of the ocean, and all of a sudden you get these huge swells, these huge 40-metre high waves, and you think, oh my God, the whole ocean is in upheaval, I'm going to drown. Well, not really. Because if you imagine a cross-section of the ocean, you see these little 40-metre high waves, but the ocean in reality is over a mile deep. And the ocean is active on the surface, but at the lower level of the ocean, it's naturally silent. And it doesn't matter if those waves are 200 metres high. At the depth of the ocean, untouched, it's naturally silent. That's the nature of the ocean, active on the surface, silent at its depth. And this is a great analogy for your mind. The surface of your mind is the active thinking mind, all the things that you're thinking about during the day. It's like the waves on the surface of the ocean. And Roth likens this to the gotta mind. I've got to do this, and I've got to do that, and I've got to call him, and I've got to call her, and then I've got to make a list, and then I've got to find the list, and then I've got to make a new list, and I've got to get going, and I've got to slow down, and I've got to get to sleep, and I've got to wake up. And I'm sure you often experience this gotta mind. And to counter this, There's also a natural inclination, a natural desire to have some inner calm, some inner clarity, some inner focus, some inner inspiration, some inner peace, some inner happiness. It's only natural. And the operative word here is inner. But the question is, where is that inner? And how do we get it? How do we access it? How do we get there? Now, research shows that every experience changes our brain. And basically, we now know from science that there are actually 3 different distinct major types and forms of meditation. The first type of meditation is called focused attention. And focused attention is any type of meditation that involves some concentration or control of the mind, trying to clear your mind of thought, trying to concentrate on your breath. It's like trying to stop the waves from moving. It's trying to stop the waves on the surface. So, it's a focus, it's a concentration. Now, I've certainly tried some of these without much joy. The major second type of meditation has now been classed as open monitoring. And that's a mindfulness form of meditation. And that's really how to emotionally disengage and just observe and be present and be mindful of your environment, be mindful of your thoughts. And this is like observing the rise and fall of the waves on the surface of your mind. And then we come to the third major type, which has been classified as transcendental meditation. It doesn't involve any concentration, and it's not just an observational tool. Transcend means to go beyond the limits. So TM is an actual technique called automatic self-transcending, which allows your active mind to experience quieter and quieter levels of thought, and then transcend thought and experience the true self, experience your own unbounded nature. Because deep within every human being, the mind of absolutely every human being, deep within all of us, is a level of the mind that is already calm, already settled, already wide awake. Now, the ancient meditation texts use some very big words for this. They say it's a source of our unbounded creativity, our unbounded intelligence, happiness, focus, clarity. It's there, it was there, and if it's there, it was there yesterday, it's there right now, it'll be there tomorrow, but we've just lost access to it. We're stuck up here. We're stuck up on the surface of our gotta waves level. And according to its practitioners, Transcendental Meditation is a simple, natural, effortless technique that allows the active thinking mind to just settle down and experience quieter levels of thought and quieter levels of thought, and then experience what has been called the source of thought, or the unified field of consciousness, or transcendent level of the mind, pure consciousness within every human being. Now here's the question. How do we know during transcendental meditation that that's what's actually happening? How do we know something substantive is taking place? Well, science has proven it. And we already know from science that mind and body are not just interconnected. In many regards, mind and body are basically one. If it's true that during transcendental meditation your mind is just effortlessly, comfortably settling down, experiencing quieter and quieter levels of the mind, and then experiencing that source of thought, it must show up in a very profound and dramatic way during the meditation, and it must show up in the body. And sure enough, what countless scientific research studies have shown is that during transcendental meditation, your body gains a state of rest and relaxation, in many regards deeper than the deepest part of deep sleep. And what that deep rest does, it allows the build-up of stress, fatigue, tension, anxiety to be dissolved, to be eliminated. When we get a state of deep rest that allows the body to repair itself, there's a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is secreted by the adrenal glands, which sit on the kidneys when we're anxious. So when we're anxious, the body secretes cortisol, and then we secrete cortisol and we feel more anxious, and it becomes this vicious cycle. And then we feel more anxious, more cortisol, cortisol, more anxious, more cortisol, etc. Now, when we get a good night's sleep, cortisol levels drop a bit, around about 10%. That's why we wake up feeling fresher in the morning after a good night's sleep. But research now shows that 20 minutes of transcendental meditation results in cortisol levels dropping a massive 30%. That's a significant reduction in the production of this anxiety hormone. But there's also an increase in serotonin, which is called the happiness neurotransmitter, as well as an increase in another hormone called prolactin, which is present when there's a feeling of well-being. Other research shows that TM results in a significant reduction in high blood pressure, in cholesterol, in reduction in the risk of heart attack, stroke, as well as a reduction in all sorts of ranges of disorders like bipolar disorder and anxiety. In fact, over the last 40 years, there's been over 340 scientific studies published in independent peer-reviewed journals demonstrating the benefits of transcendental meditation. And one of the really interesting areas of research is the effects of transcendental meditation on the brain. This is interesting because every experience we have impacts the brain in some way. And so, research on TM shows that very clearly the effect that it has on different parts of our brain, including the amygdala, which is at the center of the brain, and that's where your fear center. The frontal lobes also, which is the executive functioning, and on both hemispheres of the brain, which is the so-called analytical and intuitive aspects of our brains. And what they find is, what the research shows, is that during transcendental meditation, there's a strengthening of the connections between the frontal lobe and the back of the brain. This is important because the frontal lobes govern decision-making, planning, judgment, problem-solving, sense of self, ethical reasoning. Everything good about the brain depends upon the connections between the front of the brain and the back of the brain, between all aspects of the brain. And stress rips them apart as it takes the frontal lobes offline. That's why a stressed person doesn't have good judgment. And does a stressed person solve problems or plan well? Well, not in my experience, because the frontal lobe goes offline. But scientific research shows that during transcendental meditation, those connections are strengthened. During TM, the connections between the left and right hemispheres of the brain are strengthened. All parts of the brain connect together during TM. And that's because of something called neuroplasticity, which means that those connections that we have in meditation also last and transfer into our daily lives. And that's why people report that they think more clearly, that they make better decisions, they solve problems better, why our performance lifts and our creativity increases. It's not magic, it's how the brain is optimized. The whole brain is functioning in a coherent, integrated way. In fact, there's a spreading of coherent alpha brain waves from the back of the brain to the front of the brain. And alpha brain waves are indicative of a state of restful alertness. And that's what transcendental meditation produces, a state of restful alertness. And what's attracting me to transcendental meditation is three key things. Firstly, according to Roth, it's a very simple technique. It's simple not because it's simplistic or a beginner's meditation, but because there's an elegant simplicity to the practice, a very profound, elegant simplicity. Number two, it's natural. There's no manipulation, there's no suggestion. Every human being can practice TM as well as any other human being. It's very simple to learn and apparently very enjoyable to practice. Number three, they say it's effortless. Effortless in contrast to many other meditation techniques which involve concentration or mind control, trying to clear the mind of thoughts. Practices of TM repeatedly say that it's completely effortless. It's practiced 20 minutes twice a day, sitting comfortably in a chair with your eyes closed. It can be done on a train or on a plane, but it can be just done. It's just done sitting comfortably in a silent technique with your eyes closed. And I also like that TM is not, and what it's not. Again, 3 simple things. Firstly, it's not a philosophy. There's no philosophy for you when you learn Transcendental Meditation. No one's going to give you a TM philosophy of life. There's no philosophy whatsoever. Secondly, it doesn't involve any change in lifestyle. You don't have to change your diet or anything. And the third is, there's nothing to believe in. And this is worth emphasizing because sometimes I think when I learn to meditate, I have to believe in it for it to work. But according to Lynch and other successful practices of TM, you can be 100% skeptical, which I generally am, and the technique works just as well. The benefits are just as profound. And while we're on the topic of science, Lynch revealed that about 40 years ago, quantum physics discovered the unified field, the unity of all the particles and all the forces of matter, of creation. Not only did they discover the unified field, but they found that everything that is a thing emerges from this field of no thing. Unmanifest, it is unmanifest. It is no thing, but all things come from it. Anything that is a thing has emerged from this field of unity, its oneness. Scientists know this exists, but if they wanted to get there, they discovered that the only way to access it was to practice a mind technique. And you guessed it, Transcendental Meditation is the technique, the key to the door of infinite creation. And scientists discover that TM turns the mind within. It turns the awareness within and helps you naturally dive into it. Why is it natural? Because each deeper level of mind and each deeper level of intellect has more happiness, and the deeper levels of mind and deeper levels of intellect correspond to deeper levels of matter at the borderline of intellect. And eventually, you transcend. You go beyond the field of relativity, where you're experiencing one's pure, unbounded, infinite consciousness. And according to TM practitioners, this consciousness has qualities of infinite creativity, intelligence, energy, love, power, bliss, and dynamic peace. And any human being can experience this easily and effortlessly with TM, which is just a vehicle to get you there. And when you experience this level, you enliven it, and it grows in you, and your positivity, energy, and creativity grows, as it also replaces and diminishes negative thoughts and emotions like stress, anxiety, sorrow, depression, anger, hate, and fear. They all gradually disappear. To me, this prospect is really exciting. So let's return to the big TM question. How do we access this limitless healing field? How do we get there? How do you go from the active thinking gotta level of the mind to these quieter and quieter and quieter levels, to that source of unlimited and unified thought? How do you get there effortlessly? Well, according to David Roth, we don't have to muscle it, we don't have to believe in it, we don't have to clear our mind of our thoughts. That's like trying to stop the waves on the surface. We're merely accessing the level of our mind that's already calm. And according to Lynch and Roth, it's a wonderful experience. It's a blissful experience and a truly satisfying experience. And how do we get there? In TM, we learn to give the attention of our mind an inward direction, and automatically our attention is drawn inward. And as the mind settles down, we notice our body gaining a profound state of rest and relaxation. And this rest and relaxation releases stress, dissolves stress, rejuvenates the body, and stimulates creativity. And then we're ready to go for the next 6, 8, or 10 hours of the day into the evening. This is what I can't wait to experience. And bastardizing another one of David Lynch's analogies, a beautiful red ripe strawberry is very sweet and very good. But if you've never tasted a strawberry, you wouldn't really know how sweet and how good a strawberry is if you've never had that experience. And according to Lynch and thousands of others like him, Transcendental Meditation is like that. They tell us that Transcendental Meditation gives an experience much sweeter than the sweetness of a ripe strawberry. They say it gives the experience of the sweetest nectar of life, pure bliss consciousness. Those who don't know, but those who know, enjoy. So I can't wait to know. And joining me to talk about this and much more is Nico Dimattina. Nico's an inspirational meditation teacher, a self-mastery coach, a corporate wellness facilitator, as well as an ecstatic dance DJ. And he's currently enjoying life in the coastal paradise of Byron Bay. And as you'll hear in our engaging chat, this is a far cry from his previous life. Firstly, as an elite athlete from an AFL family, then as a Silicon Valley headhunter, where he helped find the brightest minds for tech giants like Google, Pandora and Coinbase. And he lived in the constant, never-ending hustle and bustle of New York City, San Francisco and Los Angeles in the US. But despite seemingly riding high, Nico says he was always unfulfilled. And it was this discontent that led him to develop a TM meditation practice that will become his daily source of strength and inspiration. Now, a meditation teacher and coach, Nico also co-founded Rise Ecstatic Disco, an uplifting sober dance party that incorporates cacao, movement and meditation to help you to connect to yourself, each other and nature. And I can't wait to do this with him soon. Ultimately, it's Nico's mission to empower you and to build your own daily meditation and your joy practices in order to feel more connected to realising your full potential. So in our uplifting and eye-opening discussion, Nico and I talk about why TM meditation is so fundamental to your health and well-being, where you need to start with meditation and what steps to take, how you can make meditation a daily practice. He uncovers the power of meditation to help you live your best life. And we dive into the golden sequence and 4 pillars that will help you to find your own definition of success and fulfillment through self-mastery, along with a whole lot more. You can find out more about Nico's meditation courses, programs and other information at nicodimattina.com, or just jump on the link in the show notes. So I challenge you to join me on his next Being Meditation Technique course, where we'll develop the foundational self side of the self-health wealth triangle. And if you want to do more on your wealth side and learn about the property investor's mindset, join me as I take new and experienced investors to new heights with my unique Know-How Property Freedom Flight program, where I'll guide you through my proven process for property investment success. To book your ticket or find out more, click the link in the show notes at knowhowproperty.com.au/freedom fighters, or just visit knowhowproperty.com.au. Now, let's get invested in this great heart-based conversation with Nico Dimattina.
Hi, freedom fighters. Now, as many of you know, I'm a big believer that sustainable success in anything lies at the intersection of self, health and wealth. And it all starts with self, what we think, what we believe, what we expect, and at both the conscious and the subconscious level. And one of the greatest practices to help you master yourself is meditation. But for someone who's got a constantly chattering monkey mind, effective meditation practice remains one of my ongoing challenges. So to help us to better understand meditation and self-mastery as a foundation for our fulfillment and joy in life, we're talking today with a leader in the field. And yes, he's another diehard Richmond Tigers supporter. I'm talking about Nico Dimattina. So welcome and let's get invested, Nico.
Sounds great, Bushy. Great to be here, everyone. And let's dive in.
Awesome, mate. Now, for those who don't know you, mate, can I just kick it off by getting you to talk us through who you are, what you do, and most importantly, why you do what you do?
Yes. So my name is Nico Dimattina, and I teach meditation, and I'm a self-mastery coach and run a corporate wellness business called Mind, Body, Sold, where we're bringing in that final part, that spirit. We always know a lot about the mind, we know a lot about the body in our Western world, but we've neglected, or we don't know the impact of that spirit, the soul part, which is that heart-centered approach. So this is what we're bringing back into the corporate companies, so they can be making decisions not just on revenue, but actually sustainable success for the company's bottom line, but also for their employee engagement and happiness. So this is what I do. I love what I do so much, and it hasn't always been this way. So we'll unpack sort of where I started with my evolution of getting to this point, and how meditation has been the glue that has been the foundation for my success. And yeah, so do you want me to dive into the background now and how it's sort of evolved, or?
Yeah, let's do that, because what we will dig into later is this, because I'm sort of picking up already on the separation between the head and the heart in terms of your approach, and that a lot of us in this current materialistic world are very much head-based and get stuck in our head and almost ignore and forgotten about the heart. So we'll come back to that shortly. But
beautiful.
Yes, mate, if you wouldn't mind, sort of so the listeners get an understanding of your journey so far, talk us through where you've invested your time, your energy and your money, what you've learned from that, and how it's brought you to where you are today, and go back as far as you would like, so that we sort of understand both the successes but also the challenges that you've had along the way.
You have to be careful asking that question, Bushy, to an Italian. Italians, they're very chatty. So that one, we could be here for a while.
That's all right. No, you got plenty of rope, mate. Go for it.
Great. Well, I started literally born in an Italian family very lively family, a lot of high energy, a lot of conversations, and a lot of outwardly focused energy. And always having to be on for your customers, always having to be on as the managers of the restaurant and the owners. So you're always having to be on your staff and making sure everyone's up and about, enthusiastic, smiling, bringing it aware. So that was sort of my early upbringing. And also my family are a football family, Australian football. So my dad played professional for the Richmond Tigers back in the 60s. My brother Paul played for the Bulldogs, Western Bulldogs, in the late 90s, early 2000s. Brother Andrew played for Collingwood, and brother Frankie also played for Collingwood. And I also played 1 year at Collingwood in 2008 in the VFL team. So it's been a family of, as you can appreciate, sports is very high energy, very highly stimulated, and a lot of positivity, a lot of, confidence. So, keeping yourself in the highest, the peak condition, mentally, physically, and it's a long football season. So you need to really be able to be sustainable in that. If you peak too early, you're going to miss out on finals time. You want to keep your body healthy. You want to keep your mind healthy. And this was, one of the role models growing up in football was Ben Cousins. He was one of the greatest endurance athletes of the game has ever seen, and what a great success on the field. However, he really, unfortunately, his demise with mental health really made it glaringly obvious that there wasn't enough emphasis in the sporting world on mental health. It was all about physical health, right, and fitness and diet, but seldom anyone mentioned mental health. And for me, it was 26 years old when I first came to meditation. And I always say success leads a trail. And my sister, very successful physical therapist to the who's who of New York, and in that sort of world there, a lot of her network were meditating every day, and these were CEOs of top companies, of all executives, all celebrities, musicians, actors. Everyone was meditating. And so, I was like, all right, these people are meditating. I didn't know what it was about, but my sister, who I respect so much, she's like, it's been amazing for my mental clarity. It's been amazing for my ability to be more calm. And that's a huge thing coming from an Italian who, especially from Calabria, the Calabrese are known and the Sicilians for their fiery attitudes. So that was big when she mentioned that. I was like, okay, a bit of calm, that's what I need. Also, clarity. That's exactly what I need right now. And when I first meditated, that was the first time in my life that I experienced stillness and peace. And I was like, wow, this is pretty phenomenal, coming from a very high energy Italian family and restaurants and football and all of that background. And so once I experienced that, I was like, wow, this is phenomenal. What I experienced within me, that stillness and that peace. But then what happened with building a daily meditation practice, over time, my health started to improve. And I wanted to just share that growing up from about 12 years old to about 26 when I started to meditate, so for about 15 years, I would constantly get sick. I'd had sinus infections, tonsillitis, chest infections. I would go to the doctor, the Western doc, and they would give me a bout of antibiotics. I would take the antibiotics. I would get healthy after a week or so, and then about a month or two later, I would get sick again. I'd go to the doc, same thing, antibiotics. I'd get better, get sick again, a month or two later, go back to the doc, antibiotics. So you can see the theme here.
I just want to jump in there, mate, because what I'm hearing about your early lifestyle generally, and you mentioned the word yourself, you're always on. Now, if you've always on, and you've always got to have a happy, smiling face, and sort of, there's never an opportunity to not have a smile on your face and not be at your peak performance, because you're smiling and happy to the customers in the restaurant. So there's a big expectation from you would have grown up with that almost in nappies, with an expectation that as soon as you're in the restaurant, it doesn't matter what's going on in your world, you've got a smile on your face.
Correct.
Then you've got the massive performance pressure that's attached to high grade AFL football, and that is a high pressure cooker in anyone's imagination. And what tends to happen, if you're not able to express your true feelings when you are having down days, and we all have them, then you internalise it, and the place that gets internalised is the chest, strangely enough. So, because I know that because I grew up suffering asthma and a bunch of other similar issues myself.
Yes.
How did you? I can see now how meditation would be a bit like a salvation for you almost, in terms of, oh my goodness. Can you talk to us a bit about how were you aware during those early days with the family and growing up in that high pressure and very testosterone fueled environment where you've got to be a hero 99% of the time? Yeah. What were the feelings can you remember the feelings that you were going through during that time? Was there any particular points during that where you think, oh, crikey, I just don't know whether I can keep doing this? Yeah, so the analogy I like to use is about our technology, right? So we've all got mobile phones, our smartphones, we've all got laptops or computers. Every night at the end of the day, or even during the day, we're charging up these technology devices. We're charging up our phones, we're charging up our laptops. If we forget to charge, or if it runs out of battery, the device is out of commission. You can't use it. Now, I encourage everyone to just think about your own life here. If you're not charging up your own batteries, you're depleting your system. Now, at the time, I had no idea I was depleting my system. It was just what everyone else around me was doing. My dad was doing it. My brothers were doing it. My mum was doing it. My sister was doing it. My cousins were doing it. The football team were doing it. Everyone was just pushing. You're tired, you push through. You go harder. You push. And it's interesting, that push dynamic, it's a very masculine property. Push harder. Now, what's interesting for your listeners here, Bushy, is within every human, whether you're a male or a female, we all have masculine and feminine properties within us. And if, the more feminine dynamic in this instance is
allowing, receiving, going with the flow of life and allowing the magic to flow into your life. Whereas the masculine approach is I've got to push harder to achieve my goals. I've got to go harder and harder and push and strive and force and strain. So the experiencing subconsciously, I didn't know this, but I knew that I was getting sick all the time. And my everyone would call me, I'm so sensitive, or you're so weak. Why are you getting so sick? I don't know. I have no fucking idea. So this was very frustrating for me growing up, because I'm the fittest in my group. I'm eating the healthiest. I'm the most positive out of everyone that I know, yet I'm the sickest. I'm the unhealthiest, even though everything I'm doing the right things. I remember going to a naturopath when I was 21 years old, and she said, it was the first time I started to look at some alternative medicine other than the Western traditional medicine docs who were just giving me antibiotics the whole time. And this is no, slander against any Western docs. This is just, wasn't working for me. A lot of Western docs now have got more of a holistic approach, which is great, but I needed to find some answers because they didn't have the answers for me at the time. And so that's when I started going down this other path. And this naturopathic doc, she said, you have to stop striving. Everything that you're doing, your high bar of excellence, you're so hard on yourself, you got to stop striving. And I was like, I'm not going to stop striving. How am I going to achieve my goals of playing AFL football or being successful or earning a lot of money? Or, I'm not going to, if you stop striving, it's just like you're just stopping life and you're not trying anymore.
You picked up, I think you picked up something there, and my read of that is that you are living a life that you should live, what you're expected to live, and following in the family's footsteps, and all your brothers are footballers, so there would have been this huge pressure, whether you were aware of it or not, to be the same and do the same. But underneath, perhaps that wasn't the case, but you probably weren't aware of it. Am I right in saying that?
Correct. I loved football, but I really think now, looking back, my brothers, my dad, they had such a deep passion and desire to play at the highest level, and that was their everything. For me, there always seemed something other than football. But, I played it. I was relatively good at it, but I didn't really care or to push myself so much to just be at the top for, and that was everything. For me, I felt like there was something else. And there wasn't as much of a deep desire like my other brothers had for the game. And it's interesting looking back now, because I love the game so much and it gave me so much, the camaraderie with the players and everything that football's taught me. But now that I've found my true path, my thing, this is the thing, meditation and getting people to connect with their hearts and living in aligned with their highest truth, this is what lights me up. Football didn't light me up this much. Meditation does, and having this conversation does. And so this is where I know that this is my path, because I've never felt like this before. And it's love. We talk about love. We talk about romantic love. I've got love for life now. I've got love for myself. I've got love for what I do. I've got love for just everything that happens, and knowing that it's a part, everything that happens is this part of this growth and evolution that we're all on, our journeys whilst we're here on this planet Earth for this short amount of time. So I've never felt so connected to everything that I'm doing. And yeah, so back to your point, I think when I was playing football, and doing what I was doing, everything wasn't probably fully aligned at that time. I was doing it unconsciously, just doing it because everyone else around me, my culture was doing it.
Yeah, brilliant. And you mentioned something else that I think is very relevant to a lot of Aussie blokes in particular, and that is because I guess I can connect with exactly what you're saying here, because as a young country boy, I was a really bad asthmatic and spent a lot of time in bed sick. And I can still remember the echoes. I was born into a wonderful family, great parents, but there was always this subtle implication, get out of bed and get a real job and, be a real man. And, the old man was almost, she'll be right, mate. And like you say, you just push on through.
Yes.
And the word sensitive you use there, I think, is a very good one, because a lot of Aussie blokes aren't allowed to be sensitive men, or the feeling that we can't be. And I think there's a gaping wound there that collectively we need to start addressing. To say, well, it's actually, we don't always, and all of us have to be macho men dancing around being the heroes. It's actually okay, and in fact, we should celebrate the fact that sensitivity, because it rolls out into empathy and love and all those other emotions that you mentioned that are more on the feminine side, make the world a much better place. What's your feeling on that, and where do you think there's an issue there, and what are your thoughts around what you think we need to be doing it to address that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's an issue here, and this is probably the biggest problem. So one of the biggest killers of men in Australia is suicide, and it pains me to, I was very close to losing a brother, to suicide, and thankfully he's doing fantastic now, and he's built, come back strong. But it's this inability in Australia as a man to express your emotions freely without feeling like you're going to be ridiculed or put down for it. And being sensitive is actually our superpower. And, you mentioned what it leads to. It leads to an empathetic nature. It leads to love. It leads to creativity. It leads to our strength and our courage. And it's so funny, the word courage comes from the Latin root cor, which means heart. In Italian, cuore is heart. In Spanish, corazon is heart. In French, cœur is heart. And in English, core is our center. So courage is living from our hearts. So if we're living from this place, that's where our sensitivities lie, in our hearts. We've all heard of or experienced heartbreak, and that's actually a good thing, because when you can feel that, it knows that you know that you're human, and feeling heartbreak can lead you to feeling the greatest amounts of bliss in your life. It's all on the spectrum.
Yeah, love that. Mate, something, again, having done a bit of research around your background, I know that, you went to the States and you've worked for some greats, the Google, Pandora and Coinbase for a stretch. I'd love you to sort of unpack some of the journey there. And I guess I'm reading between the lines here, but I'm guessing that given that it was a very intense and quite closed lifestyle that you probably had here in Australia, given the family connections and the football community and the expectations that go with that, to be able to go overseas and throw off those shackles probably gave you a freedom that you'd never had to explore these other things that we've started to touch on.
100%.
What was the thing that drew you to want to go overseas in the first place? And then talk to us through the journey from there, so that we've got a feel for what you were doing, but also what you were thinking and feeling during that time.
Yeah, so my sister Carla has been one of the greatest influences, positive influences on my life, and she was living in New York for about 4 years, and I remember visiting her at the time. The first time I went into New York, I was just enamored by the energy, the inspiration that the place gave me. Everyone was so committed on their mission, whatever mission, to save the world, to make a lot of money, or to have the most amount of fun. I was like, wow, what a place. New York, I'm going to come and live here. And it was great because my sister was living there. So I had some family there, and she has been such a great influence with I just had to look at her lifestyle and look at the practices that she was doing. And one of them was meditation. Another one was yoga and eating vegetarian diet, predominantly plant-based, and wasn't drinking as much. All of these little things had a big influence in my life. And so getting out of the Melbourne bubble, getting out of the football bubble, getting out of the Italian bubble, just getting out of that bubble that I was in, especially being in New York, you get exposed to so many walks of life, and it really opened my mind to so many things. It also, mind you, the first year in New York, I got defeated by New York. I was drinking 7 times a week. I was, cocaine a few times a week at the very most. And, I was the unhealthiest and unhappiest that I'd ever been in my life. That was the first year that I spent in New York. And I was working in a job that I hated. I was working in agency recruiting for an international recruitment company. I loved recruiting. I always say I loved recruiting. I enjoyed the people aspect of recruiting, but I knew it wasn't my thing. But when I was in New York, so that's why I initially went, just to explore something different. I still loved Australia. I loved Melbourne. I loved my family. I loved football. But I was like, you know what? I'm young. I'm 25. Let's go and explore the world. Let's see what else there is out there. And I'm so glad I did. It was the most challenging part of my life, but it was also the thing that enabled me to get to my path quicker, in full alignment with my health and my wealth and my purpose, and why I'm here.
Well, one of the good news there is that if in that first year, because I've been to New York, and it is, you've only got to get off the plane or the train, and you're surrounded by this electrifying. And old Blue Eyes was right. That's a town that never stops. There's no question about that. Yeah. And I guess to be in that almost 24/7 buzz, you would burn out fairly quickly, given that almost, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's probably almost a subculture there that there's an expectation that you're always going to be on. So you probably couldn't have gone to a worse place to be on.
Correct.
And then the physical, mental and emotional drain that would have over time. And then the unhealthy lifestyle that goes with that, because you're working 12 hours a day and you're grabbing food on the run, and then you're drinking at the end of the day to try and calm the jets.
Yeah.
Was that part of the thing that then tipped you over the edge to say, hey, I need to look at something else?
Yeah, and the key point here is I look at my life as pre-meditation, before meditation, and then post-meditation. Now, this first year in New York, I had not yet built my daily meditation practice. I haven't come to meditation yet. Yoga, I've done sparingly, maybe once every couple of weeks. I loved fitness, so I was always still doing a lot of sports, playing soccer, playing basketball, running, always high-intensity exercise. So that was still my health, regime, but I hadn't gotten into my mental health regime yet. So I spiraled out of control in New York with just feeling unhealthy, not fulfilled by my job, couldn't hold down any relationships, or it was just but it was still fun. It was still fun, but I was stretched to the max, and I wasn't in my full capacity. And sure enough, the universe, worked in my favor. And I remember saying to myself, I remember seeing a TV, and it was showing the Google headquarters in Mountain View, in their Silicon Valley headquarters. And I was like, that looks like a phenomenal company to work for, where they look after their employees. Looks, very sunny out there in California, and it looks very colorful, all the Google colors, and they've got ball pits and a lot of fun stuff. So I'm like, I would love to work at Google one day. Sure enough, one night in a bar. So the bars are not all bad. Bars are still good meeting places, right? To meet people. So I'm not anti-clubs. I'm not anti-bars or alcohol. I think everything in balance is great. But so I met a guy at a bar. He was a software engineer at Google, and we got talking. He was by himself, so my nature, I like to include people into the conversation. So I brought him in, started chatting, and I said, my dream job would be recruiting at Google. So he said, send me your resume. I did. Sure enough, I get an interview. I get the job, and it was out in California. So I was a bit sad because I didn't want to leave New York. I moved to America specifically to live in New York. My sister was there. I love New York. And I was like, I don't really want to move. I've only been in New York for 1 year. I'm just getting started. But I thought Google, it's going to be a great opportunity for the career, good exposure. And it actually was the best thing that ever happened to me. So I go out to California. I'm living in San Francisco now. And I don't know a single person there. So I'm starting from complete scratch. And sure enough, someone introduces me to someone who works at Google who's also an Aussie and also a fellow ethnic. He's Macedonian origin. So, the Italians, the Greeks, the Europeans, they all seem to get along. So it was nice to have something familiar there, and we hit it off. And he was actually a Collingwood supporter. And
I'll bet against you, mate.
Yeah, it was a tough one at the start, let me tell you. But he was a triathlete, and he was so dedicated to his training every day, so dedicated to his health and well-being and eating well. And I started training with him. So I've gone from New York, drinking 7 times a week at the very most, and doing cocaine a bit too much. And all of a sudden, I meet him. I start at Google. I then come to meditation. My sister recommends meditation. I learn from a teacher. I take a 3-day course, and I wanted mental clarity because I heard meditation was great for clarity. And at the time, I was a lot of brain fog with all the amount of alcohol that I was drinking as well. And so all of a sudden now, I'm drinking about once a week, once every couple of weeks, once a month. I'm meditating every day. I'm training now most days, whereas in New York, I was probably only training once a week, once every 2 weeks. So now I'm training once a day, once every 2 days. I'm getting into my yoga practice and my meditation, daily meditation. All of these things started building and building. I started feeling amazing. I started feeling so much clarity in my mind. And one of the things that dawned on me whilst working at Google, which was a phenomenal workplace, by the way, it's it's like a fairyland for adults. Phenomenal place to work. But what came to me after only 2 months working at Google, that I felt unfulfilled. There was something more for me. And I was at one of the best companies in the world to work at, but my meditation practice, the more I meditated, the more I quietened my mind, which I'd never done before in my life. All of a sudden, naturally and spontaneously, what bubbled to the surface was, you have more things to offer your fellow humans. And at the time, then Tony Robbins came on my radar, and life coaching got on my radar. And I was like, wow, I've always been super positive. I was always been very influential in my groups, and I always love human connection. And so it all just sort of blended. All of a sudden, life coaching, I was like, maybe I'll go down that route. That seems exciting. And it's more health oriented as well. And so meditation got me on that path to not only my path of health. All of a sudden, I noticed that I'm very fulfilled. I feel very whole within myself. So my relationship to alcohol shifted. I started going out and not drinking, but still going out. And, I wouldn't get hangovers. I felt clear. I was able to connect easier with people and without having any hangovers. So my health improved, but then my alignment to my career started being like, okay, this is the direction I want to go. This lights my spirit up. Let's go down this path.
So in amongst that, because you're starting to focus on meditation as not only a practice now, but as a calling almost, is what I'm hearing, and it's starting to emerge in your mind while you're probably doing those meditations. It's bubbling to the surface and the exposure to Tony Robbins, etc. Yeah. But there was a couple of other. I mean, you'd spent some time with Pandora and Coinbase somewhere in there. Tell us about how that progressed.
Yeah. So then now I had this in the back of my mind, okay, I'd like to go down this life coaching route, but I need to build up some other skills before I make that transition. So let's build some cash stores up, stay at these in recruiting. It pays well. I'm at these amazing companies. It's going to be good for my networks and it's good for the resume, good to have this credibility. So after working at Google, a lot of people in Silicon Valley, after working at the big behemoth companies where there's thousands of employees, they actually want to join a startup, and the startup that can hopefully be the next Google. And so I had that in the back of my mind. Wouldn't that be great to join the next Google or Facebook or Uber? And so one of the companies I went to, which wasn't a startup, but they were smaller than Google, was Pandora. And Pandora was a phenomenal, Pandora, the music company, I should say, not the jewelry company. And Pandora was so creative. Music is the great equalizer. It doesn't matter what color skin you have. It doesn't matter what belief systems you have. Music is the great equalizer that brings everyone together, that one love, of Bob Marley. And so the Pandora culture was so phenomenal, of an environment that focused on radical candor was one of our values. It was all about authentic self-expression as our core value as a company, which I love so much. Google, their motto was "Don't be evil," which is a great motto. They had a lot of great traits about their culture, but Pandora took it to the next level in terms of their culture and how everyone, there was a lot of synergy within the team and how everyone worked and listened to different perspectives. And that really started opening my mind as well to realize, okay, if you have an executive sharing the vision, but then someone else has another perspective, to not take it so personally, be open to what they have, and it can actually iterate and make it better. So that was huge for me. So Pandora was a great experience. Then a lot of my colleagues were going to this company called Coinbase, and I knew nothing about cryptocurrency. I knew nothing about Coinbase, but once I did a bit of research, this company was valued at $1 billion. They had about 100 employees at the time. And I researched a bit more about crypto, and I'm like, this is the future. I think crypto is going to be here, be the game-changing technology of our lives. And so I was willing to take a risk, and they were a pre-IPO startup. So that was when, and this comes back into investing, and this podcast is all about what do you invest in. So all of a sudden I've invested in meditation, but I've also invested myself into the future of sustainability for the planet. And I looked at, once I learned more about the broken financial system, what we currently have, it's very broken if we start looking deeper into it. But that's all we know, right? Until you question it. I never questioned the financial system that we've lived in. I've just been a cog in the machine and playing, what's already the foundation set. Crypto really challenges all of that. And so I joined Coinbase, and they were about 100 employees at the time. By the time I left, there were 1,000 employees within 2 years, and I was in the talent acquisition team. So, hey, it was a big part of hiring a lot of these people. And I felt something special at this company. And, one of their values, a few of their values are clear communication, efficient execution, positive energy. So these things are really powerful, that created a great container for the company on what we hired for. We hired on these values. And so we built such a phenomenal culture up, and the synergy amongst the team is tremendous. And we executed, really amazing at, amazing speeds. It was a high intense environment, growing so quickly, this hyper growth phase. But I knew this was going to be my last company that I worked at in the corporate world, because I knew I was about to make the transition to teach meditation full-time and life coaching and this corporate wellness company that I wanted to build. So I was moving towards that, but I knew I wanted to spend 2 years working at this company so I could get my stock, and I felt pretty confident that they were going to go public. And sure enough, they're about to go public, and they're about to list. So anyone who doesn't know about Coinbase, when they list, recommend getting some shares and investing in crypto, because it's going to be here to stay, and Coinbase are a big player in the ecosystem.
Did you get stock options as part of the employment drill, mate? You're probably set to do very well, are you?
Correct. Yeah, I'm super grateful for that, and this is following the heart. What got me initially into it was, of course, I thought there's going to be a good opportunity to make some money here in the long run. It's funny, when you join a startup, you often have to take less money on your cash salary initially, with the hope that the company is going to go public and you're going to make a lot more down the stretch. Now, a lot of people don't want to make that sacrifice at the start. We're talking, it might be 50K less than what you normally paid at some of these other companies. But the people that really do their research and actually listen to their heart and look at the opportunity ahead, and I'm talking 3 years ahead, 5 years ahead, and that's what I did. And I was happy to take a bit less money at this time, and I did, and I'm so grateful that I did, because it's going to pay off very handsomely.
Yeah, well, what I'm also hearing here, though, is because you're still what I call fireflying. You're like a firefly that's attracted to the bright lights and the high energy and a very intense work pressure and a lot of work commitment in there. And the meditation practice is obviously giving you solace that's allowing you to maintain that. Yeah. But you're also, what I'm hearing is you're war chesting some funds because you know you're about to jump off the corporate cliff.
Yes.
into self-employment, which is always a big financial challenge, and the fear that goes with that is often
so much
very strong. Talk to us about that, because a lot of the listeners may be contemplating the same thing. They're in a great corporate job and they may be thinking about doing something entrepreneurial. What was your experience in terms of the fears that you were experiencing? What were they, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, Bushy, this is probably the greatest challenge of my life. And this is where we start getting a little bit spiritual for all our listeners here. So my teacher, Johnny Pollard, we'll talk about his book, I think, in the moment, The Golden Sequence. Highly recommend anyone want to hear a really good sequence on how to live more in the moment and how to navigate each moment and not get so caught up in the drama of every situation. And we'll talk more about that in a moment, about the sequence. But Johnny Pollard is one of Australia's most esteemed meditation teachers. He goes to India, and a lot of the Indian gurus and master teachers, they so respect him so much for his wisdom. He's a master teacher, and I'm so grateful that he married into my family. He married my sister, and I joke around. I say I asked the universe at one time, when I knew I wanted to be a meditation teacher. I hadn't met a teacher that I really vibed with, that I really wanted to learn from and embody and emulate. So I asked the universe, please send me my spiritual guide who can take me to the next level of my path, my journey. My sister also wanted a husband and a father of her, unborn children. And sure enough, it ends up being the same person. There's Johnny Pollard, who, when I first met him, was just blown away by a man who was so balanced in his masculine and feminine energy. And I'm like, this guy is the man. He's so authentically himself and genuine, and so humble and so wise. And I'm like, this is the man. This is the guy who I want to learn from. And so we can talk more about that after. But as it pertains to this move, Johnny shared with me some great wisdom along the way. And he said, my greatest fear was, how am I going to ever earn enough money being a meditation teacher? People don't say get into meditation, you're going to earn millions of dollars, right? Now, Johnny challenged me and he said, look beyond the myth of financial security. And when I say the myth, go beyond that. He's like, don't worry about, security. Security, it actually doesn't really, even people that have got a lot of money, they're so highly leveraged. They're always thinking about how highly leveraged they are, and if something goes wrong, so they're always still living in fear, even though they're millionaires or billionaires. So what's interesting, Johnny just encouraged me to go beyond moving into the unknown, knowing that the universe is supporting your evolution. Nature is supporting your highest path. And so with that in mind, I'm like, this is so scary. This was my biggest fear. How am I going to earn enough money? How am I going to make this work? And sure enough, I did my best to earn enough cash before I made the move, where I had a buffer for about 6 months worth of, if I didn't earn any money, I would have had enough for 6 months to live off. And I knew deep down I was going to earn a little bit of money in that 6 months anyway. I didn't know how much. When I quit my job, and the first month, I actually took a few months just to relax. I was pretty cooked. I was exhausted from 10 years in the corporate world, especially 2 years in a hyper-growth startup. I was exhausted. And, I almost had the final few weeks before finishing up, it was one of the hardest weeks, that I experienced, and felt a bit of anxiety, even though I had a daily meditation practice. The demands were just too much. And then I was like, this is what most people experience, this anxiety and this overwhelm and stress. Even though you're still dedicated to your day-to-day practices, if too many demands on you, and there comes a time where you need to be able to identify that environment and either remove yourself from the environment or shift the environment and get it a bit more on your terms. Otherwise, it's just going to keep beating you up.
Yeah, no, it's spot on, mate, and some good learnings there. Something that I having done some research that I also think would be of interest to the listeners. As a Western society, we're very quick to label conditions, and then there's almost like a permanent fixture. Where and let's take anxiety as the example. You suffer from anxiety. Well, no, we don't. We just get anxious occasionally, yes. and so we should. A little bit of anxiety is actually probably a good thing, because it means we're dedicated to try and do the right thing. What's your feelings around that, mate?
Yeah, you nailed it. So when you're experiencing anxiety, mention that to yourself. You don't have anxiety. It's not a fixed thing, right? You don't need to, go and take a tablet for your anxiety. Notice that you're just experiencing a bout of anxiety at that moment in time. The more we can build, another book recommendation here is Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. He talks about, obviously, the power of now, but building the witness within us, the ability to witness what we're experiencing, the ability to witness the events that are occurring outside of us without getting caught up in the drama of them. So in other words, if you're experiencing anxiety, notice experiencing, it's a thing that's happening at that time, right? You don't have anxiety for the rest of your life. You're experiencing it at that moment. I just can't stress that enough for people, because it's so important to know that it's very natural for us to experience little bits of this. But this, if we can just notice it, acknowledge it, and not get so caught up in it, it'll actually pass. It's just passing through us. This too shall pass is a great bit of wisdom. This too shall pass. And this just points to the impermanence of life, that everything is in a constant state of flux. Everything is in a constant state of change. It's moving. So keep moving with it. Keep moving with it. And these emotions, these sensations, these feelings are all moving through us. So is our anxiety. It's moving through us. So we allow it to come, we allow it to leave, and then we get on with it. So this is a really powerful thing. And I experienced this, within myself. And I noticed it when my chest got a bit contracted. I noticed my breath was a bit shorter. You notice when you've got a bit of anxiety, or you're a bit stressed and overwhelmed, when you're feeling you're taking things personally. You're being very defensive. You're blaming other people. You're not taking responsibility for your life and your situation, right? This is you're a bit too short-tempered. This is a telltale sign you've got too much stress and fatigue in the system. Great opportunity then. The remedy is meditation. Slow down the breath. Connect with nose breathing. Move your body. Change up the environment that you're in. Connect with yourself again. Connect with nature. Get your feet grounded in the earth. These are all some great tools and techniques that we can utilize that are so easy and free that we can do and practice every day.
And this is what I love about this. And the unfortunate thing is they are so simple. A lot of people go, no, that can't possibly work. What are you talking about? I'm not going to waste my time going outside and taking my shoes off and walking in the grass. I mean, you've got to be kidding. One, I don't have time for that, and it's not going to do anything anyway. But the reality is, just by making that break and reconnecting, I haven't mastered the art by any stretch of the imagination, but every time I do that, it's like there is a peace that comes with it, that you're then in a better position to handle the machine gun dance that you might have to be working through in work or whatever else is going on. So, mate, let's circle back to the golden sequence, because I'd love for you to talk it through. I think there's a really good framework there that the listeners would really get a lot from. Can you talk us through the essence of what that's about?
Yeah, so this is my teacher, Johnny, my brother-in-law, in his book, The Golden Sequence, and he outlines a technique I encourage everyone to read the book as well. But this is the technique in it, which is so great to move through any anxiety, to move through any fears, to move through any time we're caught up in our mind and we're just racy, that busy monkey mind, which, by the way, we are all monkey minders. We all have monkey minds until we don't. The function of the mind is to think, to move us into greater states of fulfillment. Now, what's interesting about meditation and the technique that I teach and the technique that Johnny, my teacher, teaches, the technique that Oprah Winfrey does, the technique that Jerry Seinfeld does, the technique that Russell Brand, they're all, Hugh Jackman, another one, is big on this technique. They're all practicing the same technique, which is Transcendental Meditation, Vedic meditation, which is another name for it. And, Johnny created a teacher training academy called the One Giant Mind. And that's what I'm certified to teach. And it's basically, essentially a very similar technique where we utilize a mantra. Now, the word mantra in Sanskrit, which is an ancient Indian, Indo-European language that you hear, in yoga, man is mind and tra is vehicle or tool. So using a mantra, it's a mind tool, a mind vehicle. So the mantra is just a sound that helps harmonize the mind. Once the mind begins to settle, the body follows and moves into this deep state of rest. When the body moves into this deep state of rest, we go beyond the mind and we go beyond the body, and we actually drop into this place of what we call our being, B-E-I-N-G. And this is why we call ourselves human beings. It's this being part, which is our true nature. This is what we are. When we're in our being, this is where our bliss and joy and love and compassion and creativity and wisdom and intuition, this is where all of that lies within us. Now, once we access this place through meditation, all of a sudden, the mind can't conceive of anything greater than what you're currently experiencing within you. So the mind becomes still. A lot of people think when my mind becomes still, that's when I'll experience bliss and happiness. But it's actually the other way around. Once I'm experiencing bliss within me, which we all have, it's our natural state. Our natural state is bliss. Our natural state is love. What we are is love. And we come to know this with consistent meditation, consistently getting out of our heads and into this place. We dwell in this place. The more we're in this place now, I had a monkey mind prior to meditation. And over the last few years of 8 years of meditating now every day, 3 years teaching this, I've now really come to realize, this is the power of presence. The power of presence, being here in the moment, means we're not up in our mind anymore. And this is so powerful because you get to have a break. And our bodies love to have a break. Our mind loves to have a break because we're so go, 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 always on. And so this comes back into now, Bushy, the golden sequence. And the golden sequence is all about, the first thing is surrender. Surrender. In our Western way of thinking, we think surrender is a negative thing. We think surrender we've lost. That couldn't be further from the truth. Surrender is actually just stop resisting, right? Resistance is the thing that causes the greatest suffering in our life. Resisting the natural flow of life, right? Someone gets laid off from their job. They're so devastated, right? They're holding on to that job or they're holding on to that relationship. So many times, once that has happened, the next thing that happens after that is they get a better job, paying more money in a better environment. That's more in the line. And they're like, that layoff was the greatest thing that happened to me. That relationship was the greatest thing that happened to me. That we might have thought was a failure, but it actually was a stepping stone to the next thing that was in greater alignment for us. So surrender. Let go of resistance to what is. That's the first step. The next thing is accept. I accept this moment. I accept receiving what life has got to throw me next. I accept and receive and respond with love, right? Knowing that everything that's happening in our life is actually happening for our greatest growth and evolution. And this is that spiritual part of us. Once we start connecting with this, and this is no dogma, by the way. This is not religious. You don't have to believe in anything. You'll feel it within yourself, and you'll see it in your life. Once you start letting go and surrendering more and more, magic just keeps coming into your life more and more. And I see you nodding. I feel you, and I know this has happened in your life too.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I love that, mate. It's sort of it's from a different direction, but the same thing. I sort of lean towards a stoic approach to life and the obstacles away. And I love that, the amor fati, where you embrace your fate and you love your fate. And if something happens to you, I love this because I know something better is going to come out of it. And once you're in that zone, because it's the same thing, you're not then hanging on to something, you're actually embracing whatever's happening in your life and going, right, what's the learning here and where's this going to lead me to? And then all of a sudden your whole view of life changes.
So this is this Stoic approach, which I love, Stoicism and the ancient Greek philosophy. I'm really big into it as well. And actually, one of my favorite quotes is by Aristotle, and it's know thyself. It's the beginning of all wisdom. And that's why I've lived my life that the more I know myself, the more I dwell in my true nature, the more I dwell in love, the more I dwell and listen to my intuition, listen to that guidance within me, the more I dwell in my heart, I feel so wise, I feel so centered, I feel so connected, and all the magic in my life keeps coming in terms of career opportunities, relationships, wealth, health. It just keeps going higher and higher and higher. So the lesson I learn is, okay, keep staying in love, keep loving. And this is where meditation connects you with your compassion. And compassion is our superpower. The more we can connect with compassion, we can start forgiving ourselves, forgiving our past, forgiving others. Forgiveness is a superpower. And we can only forgive once we have compassion. Once we have compassion, you'll never need to forgive anyone else again, because you're being compassionate to yourself and others in the present moment. So you're never building it up where you hold a resentment or you need to forgive anyone, because you're forgiving them or being compassionate to them as it's happening. Really powerful stuff here.
I love that, mate. I love that. So you've surrendered, you've accepted.
Yep.
What's the next stage of the golden sequence?
So after surrendering, after accepting, then it's feel. I allow all the feelings without judgment. This is the key here, without judgment. So no one ever taught us how to feel our feelings. It's interesting, the word feel is in feelings. This is something that Australians, we haven't been very good at, especially men. No one's taught us how to experience or feel our feelings. And it's a super important thing for us all to get better at doing, is feeling the feelings. So I struggled to feel my feelings. I'd go to these healers and they'd say, I'm like, what do I have to do? They go, just feel the feelings, just feel into it. I was like, I don't know how to feel into it. How do I feel into it? And the greatest lesson here is just patience. And if you have your intention to feel more and to be more connected, that's all you need. Just have that intention and then know that you've set forth a path. You will eventually come to it. Just be patient with it. And over time, I began to feel very well. So this is the part here. Feeling and allowing all of the emotions that are coming up. Don't resist the emotions. Don't try and change the emotions. Don't try and judge or attach any meaning to the emotions. Just feel them, notice them, connect with them. Then the next part after feeling is connecting. This is where we connect with our hearts and we choose love. We choose the highest path. There's always two ways to go about this, love or fear. Fear is when we're caught up in our mind, very limited thinking, by the way. It's that survival, that reptilian brain, the fight, flight, or freeze. So you can respond from that place, which is often a reactive response, a fear-based involuntary reaction. Or if you are able to slow down and calm your breathing, connect with your heart, get out of your head, then you can connect with that highest path, which is love. And you'll be able to have a more creative solution to what's happening at that time, more connected to love. So we feel, then we connect with love, and then we respond. How may I be of service at this time? This is back to one of your main philosophies of life, Bushy, which is, how can I give? How can I be of service? And Tony Robbins always talks about, through giving, the how to live is through giving. That's how we experience our greatest fulfillment, and know that we can always operate from this place in every moment if we're connected to love, we're connected to abundance, we're connected to, doing good, and knowing that nature is supporting this path. The universe is supporting.
No, I love that. What a great framework. Just summarise that for listeners if you can, because there's a lot of gold in what you get, the golden sequence. There's a lot of gold that you've just mentioned. If you could just bring that to a summary for us.
Yeah. So, and there's a lot to unpack here, right? So if there's anything to take away from all of this, and if there was just one thing initially, I would say is just surrender and stop resisting. and then from that, that's the beginning, right, of all of the other magic that can come. But the first step is surrender. The next step is to accept. The next thing is to feel. The next one is to connect. And the next one, final one, is to respond from that place of connection to our hearts. Respond from the highest path, right? Choose the highest path. There's always a highest path. We often can't see the highest path if we're residing in our minds too much. And the mind makes a very poor master, but it makes a great servant. So our goal is to get out of our heads, be in our hearts. Then that informs the mind and the intellect. And we can then, weigh up our decisions and move forward much more aligned. So, surrender, accept, feel, connect, and respond.
Love it. Absolutely love it. It's a great framework, and I love the way you've attracted your brother-in-law into your life, mate. You couldn't have done it much better than the way you've done it, mate. There's no question about that. That is awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think for your listeners, Bushy, as well, to just be careful what you wish for. So the power of intention is immense. And this is where ruin is a gift, right? Sometimes we have to hit crisis point to actually say, this is what I want. So for me, my crisis point, I had 2 crisis points in my life. The first one was when my health was so shit and I kept on getting sick every few months and on antibiotics. I remember a moment where I said, imagine having a year of full health, of not getting sick. Imagine what I could do at 100% capacity. For me at the time, it was unfathomable because I'd never experienced that. I felt like I was operating at 60% all the time because I kept on getting sick. So that I didn't realize at the time was an intention. And sure enough, I experienced now 100%, my health. I haven't had antibiotics for about 5 years. My energy levels are next level. I never get sick. I'm the most positive, healthiest, happiest I've ever been in my life. And it all stemmed from building a daily meditation practice. Now I've been off booze 2.5 years, and not to say if you want to still have a social drink, that's great, but I encourage everyone to connect with your relationship to booze, right? Why do you drink? For me, I realized I don't like the taste of it. I just drank to get drunk because I like the buzz, but I realized I actually preferred the connection with humans. That's what I was actually seeking. And so once I then realized that, I realized, I'm connecting all the time without booze, and I love that. And I go out now and I dance without booze in my system, and my dance moves have improved because I'm out of my head. The head is where the judgments lie. Now I'm in my heart and I'm just expressing myself freely, and it feels great. So dance has been a really big thing for me in my life, to just get out of my head and into my body.
No, I love that, and I'm going to circle back to dance in a minute. But what I'd like you to crystallise for me and the listeners, if you don't mind, because as I said, I might have mentioned already to you that there's more flavours of meditation than there are flavours of ice cream. Yeah. And it seems to mean so many different things to different people. And part of the struggle I've had is, maybe it is because that there are different types of meditation that suit different types of people depending on where you're at and what's going on. But can you, in really simple terms, particularly for those who are just starting to say, I might have a crack at this meditation thing.
Yes.
what is meditation to you, and how? Give us a bit of a framework around how people can perhaps get started in the transcendental meditation that's been so beneficial to you.
Yeah. So first and foremost, the purpose of all meditation is simply to expand our awareness. That's what every meditation technique has in common, expansion of awareness. And when we expand our awareness, we can then detect our needs. We can detect where we're out of balance. We can detect when we're disconnected. We can detect when we're unhappy. We can detect when we're unhealthy. We can detect what we need. So awareness is the foundation that we need, a strong foundation for success. It's the building block. We need a strong foundation of self-awareness. So that's what meditation, all techniques have in common. It expands awareness. All techniques are great. They're all doing good things, but they're all doing different things as well. So, there are visualization techniques. There are body awareness techniques where you become aware of your body. There are breath awareness techniques where you just bring your attention to your breath. There are focusing techniques where there's a candle and you just look at the candle, the flame of the candle. And what all of this is doing is bringing a single point of attention for your focus, bringing your mind to one place. Now, the technique that I teach, I said before, we use a mantra. It's a transcending technique. And we're transcending or going beyond the mind, beyond the body. And what are we transcending to? Where are we going beyond? Where are we going? We're actually going into our being, which is our true self. So this technique is very powerful with connecting and establishing the truth of who we are. And this connects with our clarity of who you are, what you are. And so not only does clarity come from this technique, but it supercharges your immune system because it gives your body's natural healing intelligence a chance to kick in, right? Once you're out of your head more. And then it's phenomenal for our creativity. So this technique connects you with your purpose, who you are, what you are, and why you're here, what your purpose is, what you should be doing. The answers are just there within you. And so this technique goes straight to that source. It's a very powerful technique, and it's only a 20-minute meditation practice. And this is why I love it. It's great for the busy person, the time-poor person. Return to work mothers, love it. Actually, just mothers in general, love it. Corporate CEOs, love it. This is phenomenal if you want to supercharge yourself to be able to, in 20 minutes in the morning and ideally 20 minutes in the afternoon, give your body that deep rest, because we're all so fatigued. We don't realize we're fatigued until we experience not being fatigued, until we experience full vitality and energy. And so meditation helped me realize that, because I was super fatigued. I didn't realize, though, until meditation. So this technique illuminates all of the things in your life that are incongruent with your higher self. It illuminates all of the crap, all of the shit. It brings it to the surface. So then it's very clear. And now it's up to you then to take action on moving into higher states, moving into environments that are more conducive to your health, more conducive to your wealth, more conducive to being more curious and expanding your awareness. So this is what this technique does and why I love it. So it's a 20-minute meditation practice. And I teach it in 3 sessions over 3 consecutive days, only 2 hours each session. And it's a bit nuanced to learn at the start. That's why we teach it over 3 sessions. Typically after the second session, people really start to get this technique. And it's a really powerful technique to just let go out of your mind, let go of your body, and you just move into this place. And it's a phenomenal technique. It's hard to talk about because you have to experience it for yourself, and then you'll feel it, and then you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I love it, and I definitely encourage the listeners to get on board. We'll mention at the end of the show and in the show notes afterwards how people can connect into that 3-part series that you do with them, and the accountability group that follows that, so that you can sort of develop the practice by doing it every day to really start to see the benefits of it. Mate, that sounds awesome.
One last thing on that, Bushy, is it's this technique is perfect for people who think their mind's so busy that they've tried to meditate and they can't meditate. This technique, it's all about effortlessness, and it's so easy, the technique. It's so simple and easy to practice. It's easy to learn and simple to practice. So just a good reminder that meditation doesn't have to be hard. And I encourage everyone to, come and learn, because it is super powerful and effective, and you'll realize that it's easy to do, and you'll prove yourself wrong when you say, I can't do that. I've heard it time and time again. I'm too busy, or my mind's so busy, I will never be able to tame this. And I thought that for myself, and I proved myself wrong.
I love it, mate, which is a great challenge for me, mate. So I'm looking forward to that. Mate, you sort of through our conversation today, you've talked about that sort of connection between mind, body and soul, and the importance of music and dance in relation to the way of bringing those together. I know you run a silent disco exercise, which I think is phenomenal as a way of physically expressing that and changing your energy levels. And while I don't do it every day, my wife and I quite often will just dance around the kitchen or the lounge room. If we're in a bad space, we'll just suck on a favourite piece of music and we'll act like idiots.
Yeah.
But when we've finished it, we feel we've changed our state. We feel much more in flow, much more at ease, and generally with a big smile on our face.
Yes.
So talk to us about how you've, the connection between the meditation and what you're doing in that space that listeners can take advantage of as well.
Yeah. So when I think of meditation, I think of the yin and the yang, the Chinese symbol, yin and yang. The yin is the calm. The yin is the stillness, the relaxation, the slowness. The yang is the stimulation, the higher energy, right? So if you look at the sun is stimulating energy. That's the yang dynamic. The moon is the yin, the balancing, the calming energy. So meditation is the stillness, is the yin. And growing up playing high-intensity sports, I love it. I love running around. I feel so alive. I feel all the positive neurotransmitters, the dopamine, the serotonin, the endorphins just running rampant in the system. It feels amazing, right? And what I realized when I reflected upon my, sporting career, I was like, it gave me an opportunity to get out of my head and into my body. I wasn't thinking about my worries when I was playing sport. And I was a huge hypochondriac. I was always worrying about the future, worrying about all the things that hadn't happened yet that I realized never happened. It was all my mind and all these worries that the mind creates. So in the US, when I was in New York, a few of my friends were into this thing called 5 Rhythms. Have you heard of 5 Rhythms before?
No, I haven't.
5 Rhythms is an international dance class. And they've got studios all around the world. So I started doing it in New York. I would go to 5 Rhythms, and it was all about moving your body and moving through your fears of feeling uncomfortable or feeling silly to dance, or how good your dance moves were, and just expressing yourself through movement. And a few of my male friends, a plug for my friend James Swanwick. He's got the Alcohol-Free Lifestyle podcast, and he's a coach for alcohol-free, getting people off booze, and it's all for entrepreneurs, who want to experience the life without booze for a bit and experience how amazing it was. So James was one of my good friends who was big into dancing. So I would go with him and a few of our friends. And what I realized from this dancing, I like what you said, you felt so energized. I felt so clear in my mind. I felt so in flow. And then what you realize is, this is a sober dance party, by the way. So no one's drinking, no one's on drugs. And everyone is just expressing themselves naturally and freely. And it creates a beautiful community here of open-minded, open-hearted people. And some of my best relationships have come from this dance community. So when I lived in Los Angeles, I was going every week, every Saturday at 10 a.m. Soho Dance LA, this studio. And this woman, Kate Shearer, who was running it, a British woman, just powerhouse woman, loved her so much. And she wants to change the world. She talks about politics. She talks about love. She's spiritual. She goes for it. Such a courageous human being. And she's a huge inspiration in my life. And her dances every week had about 100 people. And the community was so strong, and I loved it. And so dance had a huge impact on my life. And so I'm like, you know what, when I came back to Australia, I'm like, I've always loved music, and I've always loved high vibes. I've always loved to party. So I'm like, I'm passionate about creating a sober dance party where people can, if you stop drinking, or if you stop going to clubs, that's where we normally associated dancing. So as soon as you stop going to clubs, you know, where are you dancing? Unless you're dancing at a wedding or, you know, a birthday party, we're often not dancing. And we all love it so much. Most of us do. And often for me, I would have to drink a few more, I'd have a few more shots when I was in my drinking days to then get the liquid confidence up to actually dance and not give a fuck about my dancing and how I looked. And so this was my big passion, which is how can I share this with more men in particular, right? So as to show, because often dancing we associate it with women. And just for us all to remember that we have masculine and feminine dynamic within us, all of us. And so we don't want to suppress any part of our masculine or any part of our feminine. We want to find that intersection between the both, the confluence of both. That's our power. So dancing is a great feminine property that we can all embody and express ourselves. And we realize it's just movement. It's just moving our bodies. It's amazing the stories that the mind creates on how silly we look, or the self-conscious beliefs about moving, and how, you know, how we're looking to others. And the more we dance, the more we do this, we realize that, it doesn't matter. We're all just expressing ourselves, and it feels great. And you step into, actually, a lot of confidence comes from this, because you move through your fears. And so there's a lot of metaphors in this. So I created, with my partner Courtney, we created the Rise Ecstatic Disco, which we wanted to bring disco back more. And Rise is all about rising into your higher self, rising beyond the fears, the worries, rising and expressing yourself, you know, and that full courage, full confidence. And so I DJ these dance events, and I love it. I've always been big into music, but I didn't want to DJ because it associated with, you know, alcohol, drugs, and nightlife, and I wanted to go a bit more of a healthier option. But now I've found the intersection between all of them, and I love it. And I guide people on a guided meditation to start with, to begin the dance. My partner Courtney introduces everyone, welcomes everyone into the space. We have a little cacao ceremony. We set intentions. Cacao, 100%, you know, raw cacao helps open up our hearts, and it dilates the vessels, the veins, so blood can flow more freely through our system. So it's phenomenal for moving through blockages that are blocking, you know, the pathways to the heart. Opens up our heart. And it also has a natural uplifting effect too. So we have the cacao plus the meditation, plus we do some qigong and moving and breathing exercises into the dance for about an hour or so. And then we guide a guided meditation at the end, and we end with a share circle. And this is powerful, the share circle, where everyone shares what they experienced throughout their dance. And it's amazing what comes up. People a few days ago shared they moved beyond their fears. They realized, you know, how much they love to dance and move. They realized how freeing it was for them. So this is a great modality, that yang energy, the stimulation energy that we can utilize in conjunction with the stillness of the meditation of the yin. The yin and the yang, that powerful combination, is the secret sauce that I encourage everyone to look at their life and think, what do I need more of? If I'm doing more yin and stillness, maybe I need some more stimulation, more yang. If I'm too yang, which most of us in our society are, we need some more balance with the yin. And then finding that sweet spot between the two and doing both of them consistently, boom, you're going to be flying high with your energy levels and clarity and purpose.
I love it, mate. Book me in. Book me in, Nico. I'm there. I am there, mate. So in Adelaide at the Adelaide Fringe, and I haven't been able to go because of COVID this last 12 months, but they have a silent disco in the Garden of Unearthly Desires, they call it. And it's such fun. You strap on the headphones, and everyone's got different music in their headphones, by the way, so they're all singing, all dancing to different beats, and it just the fun of doing it and being part of it and watching it. It's just I can't say how much of a smile and how much joy and bliss you feel when you're doing it and when you finish doing it. So.
Yes.
So I love what you're doing in that space, mate, and bringing back like the sober disco. And you're absolutely right, mate. Most of us only get a chance to dance when we go to someone else's wedding.
Yes.
And then we're half cut by the time we get on the dance floor anyway to give us that Dutch courage.
Yes.
So
I think that's the key here. I want everyone just an experience to know that we don't need booze to have fun, first and foremost. And you don't need to go to a club or a wedding or, just to dance. You can put on a song in the morning, like what you and your partner do. Put on your favorite song and just move to that in the morning. Watch how your day flows after that. You'll be in such a great state and enjoy. And so, this is what I encourage everyone, just to bring this back into their life. Bring that playfulness back. Let's not get too adultish.
Yeah, exactly. I love that, mate. Something before I jump into the ambush series, and I'd like your thoughts and feelings on this as well. What I'm hearing is with the journey you've managed to take when you've gone overseas and now come back to Australia, must have been pretty confronting for you and the rest of the family, because everyone else is following the restaurant football mode almost. In that quite tight Italian community, and it is a very community oriented, but it's very very tight. How has that played out?
Yeah, it was a very big challenge at the start, especially when I stopped drinking coffee. I grew up with coffee, I love the smell of it, love the taste of it. But when I started just tuning into how it made me feel and how it masks your feelings and it masks your tiredness. When you're tired, you want to listen to your body. And if your body's saying, I'm tired, you want to listen to that and give it a break. You don't want to push it even further by drinking another coffee, which is what I used to do and what we typically do. So my relationship to coffee shifted. I still have a coffee every couple of months, but I don't have it every day anymore. And when I stopped drinking coffee, my family was like, whoa, that was like, crazy and wild. I replaced it with the peppermint tea, which doesn't have any caffeine, but it still has a natural uplifting effect. But that was a big shift for them. I copped a lot of shit from my brothers for not drinking, and they thought it was strange. They're like, come on, have a drink. And I'm like, no, I'm good. So there was a bit of peer pressure. At the start, they sort of resisted it. But then the more I just stayed in my truth, and that's my number one core value, which is stay true to myself. And I think everyone really needs to stay true to themselves, to listen to their hearts and stay true to that. For me, my highest path, what I want to accomplish and the amount of people I want to impact with experiencing this bliss within them and, getting through, all their hardships. I realized that booze for me doesn't have a place in my life, and all the silliest shit that I've ever done in my life, I was always drunk. And so I'm like, you know what? And it gives me brain fog. And so I was like, for me, it's no place in my life. So I got rid of it. Over time, I remember having a conversation with one of my brothers, and I just said, he was trying to say, come on, have another drink. Come on, just have one. And I said to him, accept me for being me. I don't want to drink. Just accept me. Most of my best friends, would just accept that I didn't want to drink, and they'll be like, all right, you don't want to drink? You do you. A great thing that they say in America is, you do you. I'll do me, you do you. I love that, right? We don't have to be doing the same thing all the time. In Australia, we are a little bit more of a herd mentality where we have to be, if we're all drinking, everyone's like, oh, we have to all be drinking. Or if we're all smoking a joint, everyone's like, everyone has to smoke a joint. Well, it's like, nah. He might be smoking a joint. You might be having a whiskey. He might be having a beer. This guy might be having a peppermint tea. This guy might want to, do that. Let's all accept each of one of us for whatever we want to choose, and that's perfect. It's all perfect. Whatever floats your boat. different strokes for different folks. So initially it was a bit tough for my family to get their head around it. Now, so much acceptance. They love it. They're proud of me. They might not do everything that I do, and that's fine. You know, they don't meditate every day, most of them. Half the family do, half don't. Some of them are still drinking. A few of us, you know, so but it's left an impact for sure. And I think it's encouraged them to, every individual in my family, to listen to how they want to live and do that more and speak their truth more.
A brilliant example, and we talked about courage earlier, but the courage that you've demonstrated in being able to resist that, because often the people that are closest to us are the hardest ones to convince. You know, it's the old story of, you know, not even Jesus's family believed he was Messiah is probably relevant in the context of what we're talking here, because for you to have the courage to confront that and go, no, I'm going to be true to me and do what I know is right in my heart, and regardless of what the others think, that level of courage is something a lot of Australians never actually stand up to, mate. So full respect.
Thank you. And yeah, just the last thing on that is we need to get okay with feeling uncomfortable at times. We need to, so many times, when I was bit by bit getting off the booze, you feel, you know, we're all people, a lot of us are people pleasers. We want to keep the peace. We want to do what everyone else is doing. And as soon as you go against the grain, you're going to trigger people. People are going to feel judged by you just because of your choices, even though you might not be judging, right? And so that was a big thing about booze. I don't judge anyone that drinks. If you want to drink, that's fine. Booze just doesn't play a role in my life anymore. And that's no judgments to anyone else's choices. For me in my life, didn't agree with me. So I had to sit through a lot of people being triggered by that and feeling judged by me, even though it was just their own mind playing tricks. So the more we get okay with just sitting through the discomfort, you'll notice that you'll get stronger and stronger. And it's okay. The discomfort passes. And that's like we were saying before, Bushy, about experiencing anxiety or an anxious moment. You know, we just need to know that that discomfort is a passing thing. It's not a final conclusion.
Love it, mate. It's interesting you say that. My wife and I went dry for 12 months the year before last, and we didn't have a problem with it, but everyone else seemed to. And you're right. It was like, oh, well, if you're not drinking, we won't drink. It's like, no, you drink. We don't care. You drink. But we're just not drinking. It's okay. We didn't try to make a big deal out of it. It wasn't like we wore a sign saying we're not drinking anymore. Mm-hmm. But the reaction from other people, and you're right, the sort of subtle self-criticism that came out of that was really, it's something we hadn't contemplated, actually.
Yes.
That they would start to react that way more because of what was in their head, not because of what we were doing. So,
yes.
Love that, mate. Let's jump into the good old ambush round, which are the sort of series of questions that I like to ask every guest based on what the listeners are always wanting to glean your wisdom on.
Beautiful.
And you mentioned some great ones already through the chat, but what's your favourite quote and why?
Yeah, so it's Aristotle, and it's know thyself it's the beginning of all wisdom. And that really has become evident in my life. The more I meditate every day and connect with my true nature, connect with my heart, connect with love, connect with my highest path, connect to that courage, everything, that wisdom within me, that wisdom, I just had a little, my computer just bugged out there.
All good. No, all good.
So, so know thyself, the beginning of all wisdom. The more I connect with that wisdom within me and know myself and what's my greatest health and what lights up my spirit, what gets me excited, brings me the most joy. If I keep moving in that direction, life just gets better and better and better and better. So I'm like, all right, don't mess with it. Keep moving inward into love. Keep moving inward into yourself, and all good things will come.
Love it, mate. Moving into the book area for a minute, what's favourite book that you would recommend the listeners read and why?
There's so many good ones. It's always a challenge. Deepak Chopra, The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. This one is a good one because it's such a small book. It's so easy to read. You'll be finished with probably within a day, maybe even half a day if you're a quick reader. It's so bite-sized chunks of just expanding your awareness to the magic of the universe, the magic of this intelligence of nature. It gets you just to reorient yourself to our highest path and going in that direction and allowing the magic to flow. So that really helped me in my evolution on this path.
Yeah, I love it. No, that's a great comment. I think there's one other guest who's mentioned the same one, and I haven't read it yet either. I've read a lot. I'm a rabid reader, but that's one I haven't. So I'll definitely get downloaded and get on with a Kindle.
This is actually, because it's such a small book, I actually give this to my coaching clients. I always give them as a freebie. You know, it costs $12, $14 or whatever, but it's so easy, digestible. And I really like the way he puts it. And Deepak Chopra, by the way, has come from the same lineage of my meditation teachers. His teachers are the same as my teachers' teachers. So, I subscribe to his wisdom and the body of the wisdom that he subscribes to.
Yeah, I love it, mate. Into the investment arena for a minute, and this can apply to anything. What would be both the best investment advice and the worst investment advice that you've ever received?
The best investment advice was my brother Frankie, who said, never burn your bridges. So this was about human relationships. And we realized that, Harvard have got one of the longest studies going on happiness and life expectancy. And it's not about your fitness regime. It's not about your diet. It's about your relationships and your community. And so from a very young age, Frankie said this one, don't burn your bridges. Don't burn your bridges. And relationships are something that I've always gone, I'll move a mountain for my friends. I'm always there for everyone at any point in time. And that thing, it helps for our relationships, home life, but also career and work life. So that's one of the greatest investments, investing in your relationships with self, investing in relationships with, everyone else, your family, your friends, and, you'll live a happy and long life.
Love it. The flip side of that, mate, what would be the worst investment advice you've received?
Yeah, so this is where that sort of American approach of success, and you got to, give up everything to achieve your dreams. You got to push, go harder. It's funny, the less I push now, the more effortless I am in my life, the more magic is created and the more joy, bliss and wealth comes into my life. So that's the worst advice. Stop pushing and straining and forcing. It'll only create more strain in your life. Yeah, money might come, but at what expense? So that's what you have to ask. I'm all about sustainable success. And I think money can come, but not at the detriment of your relationships, not at the detriment of your health. You can have them all. Yeah. So don't push too hard on just career.
Perfect. Yeah, brilliant, mate. Coming back to the personal habit, and I reckon we're going to guess what your answer to this one is, but the personal habit that you believe contributes most to your success today, what is it?
Yeah, everyone knows what's coming here. When I built a daily meditation practice, I've been meditating now every day for 8 years. It has changed my life and I can't speak highly enough of it and how easy it is to do. When we can discipline our mind through a daily practice of meditation, you'll be more creative, you'll be more healthy, you'll be more clear in your mind, and you'll be connected to your self-compassion, self-acceptance, self-love. And from that place, you'll get to know yourself better and what your needs are to bring you more fulfillment. And then you'll also be able to connect and sense other people more, because you're connecting with that deeper place within you, those subtleties of those feelings within you. You'll be able to connect deeper with other people, so your relationships will get more harmonized, and everything grows from that. So a daily meditation practice is what I invested in, and everything is taking care of itself after that.
Well, if you look at where your life's at now compared to what it was before you started meditation, there's been a massive evolution there, Nico. So hats off to you. You're walking the talk. Your own life is a clear demonstration of the benefits of what meditation has meant to everything that's followed. So absolutely love that, mate. Final question. It's a big one, and it gives you a bit of an opportunity to wrap all this together. If I gave you a microphone that spoke to every single one of the 7.7 billion people that are currently alive in the world today and gave you 60 seconds to talk, what would you say?
That's a good one. So I love the poet Rumi, and his quote is, "Your heart knows the way, run in that direction." So I'd say to everyone, look inward, go inside yourself, listen to your heart. All the answers are not outside of you, they're inside of you. All the answers. So that's what I would say. I would just reorient everyone's perspective to be outwardly focused to inwardly focused, and deepen that connection with yourself. So love yourself, know thyself, and watch all the magic ensue in your life.
Love that. Now, that's a perfect segue into something that I've just introduced recently, which I call the TLC Challenge. And it came out of I was on another podcast a few weeks ago, and it's just synergistically grew out of our conversation, because I've got this belief, which is a bit of a mantra in a way for me, in that TLC is the core of life, and it's TLC in terms of self, which is tender, loving care. It's TLC in terms of health, which develops trust, loyalty, and courage. And then it's TLC in terms of our wealth, which is time, leverage, and compounding returns. So, but pulling that back to the TLC challenge, if you can think for a minute for the person that you love the most, who is that for you, Nico?
That's a tough one. The person I love the most. There's so many, but I'd have to say I love myself, right? Because in loving myself, I love everyone that I come in contact with because I know them better. So self-love.
Well, you're a step ahead of everyone else, because the essence of the TLC challenge is to think of that person. It might be your mum, it might be your partner, it could be your dog, it could be whatever it is. And then the feelings that you have for that person, turn them on yourself.
Beautiful.
Because a lot of Australians, the little voice in our head, we wouldn't abuse anyone else with the stuff that we talk to ourselves about most of the time.
Yeah.
Yet if we turn that into a loving perspective and shout ourselves with that TLC, the energy that comes out of that and the everything that flows from that has the power to transform our lives. So it's a really good way to pull it together. If I ask you one last question, and thinking back on the conversation we've had today, what do you believe you've been invested in your life today?
Love and fulfillment. I've invested in fulfillment through a meditation practice. But that's how I live my life now, and moving in that direction always. Listen to your heart. The more I listen to my heart, I invest in that. I invest in love. I invest in relationships. I invest in health. And that keeps leading me to better things for my career and money as well. And when I listen to my heart as well, when it comes to crypto and joining Coinbase, it paid dividends, So all from listening to that, doing something different, going into the unknown. The more I'm in my heart, the more strength and courage I have, so I can move into the unknown confidently that everything's going to be okay. even though it might be a bit tumultuous, a little bit overwhelming at times, there's a beautiful trust and a knowing that everything is going to be okay, and everything is always all right, even when we don't think it is. It's actually teaching us our greatest teacher at the time, our greatest lesson. So, yeah, that for me is has been very powerful for me. And it's it's a tough question when you asked before about what do I love the most, because you always hear it takes a village to bring up a child. Right, you got your parents, you got your siblings, you've got your mistakes. I actually look at my mistakes as the thing I love the most as well. I'm so grateful for my mistakes, because without them, I wouldn't be the person I am today. So everyone's had this influence on me, and so I'm just so grateful for it all. So it's and this is when who do I love? I love the universe. I love nature. I love everything about just existence and being alive as a human. And let's explore, let's move into the unknown, let's see what we're capable of, what's our full potential whilst we're here on this planet as a human. So let's give it a go.
Love your energy. It's contagious. You can tell you're in the zone because it just emanates from everything you talk about. So I know the listeners are going to really connect with that, but really appreciate you spending some time. And for those that do want to connect with you, Nico, that are inspired by the opportunity to get involved in developing a 20-minute per day transcendental meditation practice, how do they do that?
Yeah, so you can find me on social media, on Instagram, Nico Dimattina, NicoDimattina. Also nicodimattina.com, my website, LinkedIn as well. So, and the email is nico@nicodimattina.com. And keep in touch. And I run meditation courses every month, and they're group courses. If you want to do a private course too, we can arrange that outside of those dates. And if you're, I do them online, so you can be anywhere in the world, on Zoom. But also, if you're in the location that I'm in, also welcome everyone to do it in person. And if you are in the place where I'm at, so often I run these ecstatic dances, these Rise Ecstatic Disco experience in Byron Bay, which is where I live. I run them in Sydney and in Melbourne. And maybe one day to Adelaide, Bushy, we'll get a crew and we can make that happen when you go back there as well to visit, and we can make an event of it.
Let's do it, mate. In the meantime, I'm going to try and catch one in Melbourne, mate, if I can. I can't wait, actually. So, mate, you've been very generous with your time. Really enjoyed the chat and really looking forward to staying in touch, Nico.
Likewise, Bushy. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks so much.
You get a summary of all this investment gold in the show notes. Just email me on hello@khgroup.com.au. It's HELLO@khgroup.com.au. Or check us out at www.bushymartin.com.au/Get Invested. I look forward to joining you next week for another episode of the Get Invested podcast. So thanks for listening. And as always, dream as if you'll live forever and live as if you'll die